Okay, this is the week 4 assignment going over the ethical considerations from a myriad of different sources. A bunch of different sources. We're going to be looking at some ethical considerations, and I'm going to be giving my opinion on them. So, the first one we have is about AI labeling. Um, the question verbatim: as AI can be utilized to build products that used to be created exclusively by humans, what do you think the future has in store? Do you think we might start labeling products and services as 100% human made or AI free to distinguish them from products that were created with AI assistance, similar to how foods are labeled organic and GMO free? I think that it's not a great comparison between the sort of organic and inorganic stuff because AI, the products that it creates are very different and much more prevalent to daily life. I mean, we're talking about food and stuff. I won't get too stuck on this subject, but I don't think it's a fair comparison. I think that historically, the precedent is that a new technology comes along, disrupts everything, and it takes a long time for legislature and restrictions and rules to be put in place around them. So I think that we're going to see a period of um, pretty wild sort of AI taking over everything that we're in right now, and we're not going to see anything close to legislature or, I mean, especially with this current presidential uh, group, the current administration in place is very pushing this stuff as much as possible. They're going to do everything they can to keep restrictions from being placed on it, and I think that's the trend that's we're going to see for a while because AI is going to basically develop until it can't really develop anymore without another big breakthrough, and then we're going to see the restrictions. So I believe a system of labeling will be employed, but it'll probably be employed later than it should. Um, I might actually change that. I think labeling will be implemented, but I won't think it'll be effectively enforced until much later on. Um, Sort of similar to how legislature around proper advertising took decades to develop, and there wasn't a rating systems for films until like 1968. This stuff takes a long time, usually decades, and labeling restrictions surrounding AI will probably be slow in coming and ineffective. Um, in response to the second part about human-made products, yeah, the value of human-made products is going to increase, absolutely. But that's just because the volume of stuff that is not human-made, that is cheaply produced, is going to increase so dramatically that there's going to be, you know, it's automatically cheaper, which makes the value of human-made things automatically higher because they take more effort, um, and are typically of a higher quality. It's not always true. AI is getting really good at replicating higher quality stuff, but I would say we are probably going to see an advent of time where either human made things are going to be valued higher than they were, or what's probably more likely, at least in the near future, is that, corporations pay less for AI made things, so human made products, they are technically more valuable, but they are monetarily less valuable because they cost more and are of a perceived similar quality to AI stuff, or at least the price difference and quality difference when you can make a million advertisements for like $10 versus hiring a graphic designer and a marketing team and all of that, and that costs three careers, 100 and whatever that would be, $180,000 for three like people working on a living wage. It's pretty obvious what the answer is going to be. It just makes sense at the bottom line. So I think that like we will see legislature eventually that kind of protects people and the human made value of products. But it's not going to be for a while. There's going to be sort of an upheaval first, and potentially some pretty dramatic shifts in the job market. That's my theory. I'm not big into economics, so I'm not really sure. But I would like to look more into this. Um, but yeah, rules usually take a while to be put in place, but eventually they will, and a new order will be established, and then another technology will come along. And it's just the way things work. So we're gonna go ahead and go to the next one, which is transparency of AI. How do we handle the issue of AI being indistinguishable from human works? I believe the actual wording of the question is, how can we explore the challenge of working out the difference between human created and AI generated content? So this is my answer. The other part of this assignment is asking AI what its answer is. My answer was basically boiled down to people should have some sort of basic training, depending on what their job is, what their interaction with AI on a daily basis is. If they're working in a job or studying in a place where they have to kind of contend with AI, like for instance, a teacher who gets a lot of papers should have a basic amount of training to sort of pinpoint out the telltale signs of AI generated content. And obviously, as AI gets more sophisticated, those telltale signs they disappear because AI is getting a lot better at imitating human quirks. But for now, a basic set of training for like pinpointing out, like with AI generated images, we watched that video not too long ago, and you could see there were definitive things in those images that could be pointed to, and gave away that it was potentially AI generated. Now, obviously, like I said, as it gets more sophisticated, and it is getting more sophisticated at a very rapid rate, those things are going to become irrelevant pretty quickly. So that basic training would have to be developed probably after AI sort of plateaus and hits whatever its endpoint or temporary endpoint is, because we are currently in the development stage where it's just getting more powerful every day. But I do believe that it's going to plateau at some point in the next few years. Um, I also said that labeling obviously is a good idea. Again, like I said before, I don't know how effective it'll be. Can't really be enforced unless it's governmentally enforced or these corporations like uh, do it based on their own goodwill, and that probably won't happen. And there probably won't be an organization like, um, you know, OSHA or the people in charge of the rating systems that develops for a little while here. And when they do, there'll be lots of trials and tests to figure out what the right system for labeling is going to be. It's just going to be a long process. My last and probably the most effective, it's the one that everybody's using right now, which is supplementary technology. AI detecting algorithms and programs that you can run essays through, and it'll say, "Hey, this percent of this is AI." I think Grammarly AI has something like that, and then there's like other programs that can uh, poke out the metadata of uh, like what's been spit out, poke out the little inconsistencies, the things that make it more AI, and say, hey, this is like 70% AI or 50% AI or whatever. Like the likelihood of it being AI. That's probably the only tool that's going to be realistic right now, at least for a few years. So the AI, I asked ChatGPT, and it gave me a lot, like it always does. But the basic rundown is that there are multiple considerations. They offered me some technical approaches, which is one of them was watermarking, which I think is really interesting. Apparently, Adobe products do this, where they have like an invisible watermark that is can be read by it's like embedded into the content, and it can be read by different programs to say, hey, this is, and that's probably how the labeling is going to be done whenever it's implemented, invisibly. Uh, Stylometric analysis, algorithms can analyze writing style. I talked about that a little bit already. File metadata and fingerprinting. This happens a lot with images and video, so it's sort of just talking about the technical side of a lot of this stuff. AI, ChatGPT talked about creative and linguistic challenges, which is really just like, the feel of, if it's writing, the feel of it. You read a lot of AI written stuff, and it's like it's really well written, but can get a feel for it because maybe it's too smooth, it's too on topic or whatever. It doesn't have those quirks that a human writer would have. The way I like to put it is the lowest common denominator. It's the lowest common denominator writing. It will always give you the most sort of, this is exactly what you asked for. Like, it's not going to deviate in any way. It's not going to tell you fun facts about this thing unless you ask for it. It's going to give you exactly what you ask for in an as effective a way as it can. Um, that's just not what a human does. A human can try to do that, but a human is always going to be colored by their own biases and experiences and everything else. So that, yeah, creative and linguistic challenges. ChatGPT talked about ethical and social implications, which is like the why behind the detection is just as important as the how, which is what this whole class is about. So I'm not really going to bother going over all this. And then the one that I found most interesting was experimental exploration, which is like running experiments, like blind tests and prompt comparisons to kind of like feel out um, on a case by case basis, which I think is way too much of a workload for something like this, typically, and unless it's like really important, like a doctorate paper or something, you would not be using individual experiments on AI generated stuff. Uh, but I thought it was interesting because I hadn't really considered it. So my conclusion of a comparison of the two is that we said very similar stuff. ChatGPT obviously said a lot more than I did. It was like 8 paragraphs. AI agreed with me on labeling stylistic differences in building detection tools, but it also brought up the point that these programs become, as they become more sophisticated, they become better at mimicking human quirks, which makes it really difficult to tell them apart. Which means eventually the technology is going to be the only thing that can determine whether something is AI generated or not, which is crazy. That we have to rely on technology to figure out if something is technology. It's just, we're kind of approaching that singularity that Kurzweil was talking about, and it's a weird world we live in. But it's cool. So the next question was, how might we foster human creativity in an age where AI is trained to do things humans do, like art, music, writing, etc.? Could the rise of generative AI mean that human workers must embrace forever learning in order to remain relevant in the job market? Now, to me, these are sort of two different questions, but they do tie in together. And this makes me a little mad because I value creativity a lot. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I think that this stuff is inherent to being human. And I think that the problem is not that we have AI that is able to illustrate. This stuff is not trained to do anything. It's trained off of a knowledge base, and it's trained how to imitate. And in my opinion, it's almost entirely plagiarism, like art and music and stuff. It's just stealing. But that this is a whole rant that I can go on. I wrote an article for the Collegian, the Asbury Collegian, on this because I feel very strongly about it. I think it's a really cool tool. I think it's incredibly powerful. But I think that it is a Pandora's box. It's opened up this new avenue for people who in the past, you have an idea, you want to express it, and you find that you can't because you lack the skill. Instead of developing that skill, you can now just put it into ChatGPT or Midjourney or any of the other AI tools that develop music or art or whatever, and it spits out this sort of generic copy of what you were kind of thinking of, and that's good enough. You don't really need to do anything more than that. You don't need to develop the skill. And I spent like 8 years developing the ability to do the things that I do, and so a bit of this is personal bias. But I'm incredibly proud of the time and effort that I put in, and I never would have gotten to this point if I could just, you know, type it into a prompt into Midjourney every time I had an idea for something, um, or not Synthesia. What's the music one? Whatever that one was. Whenever I wanted music, like, that's just a completely it completely defeats the purpose of self-expression. And I think that it completely defeats sort of the thing that makes art really beautiful, which is the uniqueness of it and the personal touch of it. You know, you look at any artist and you can say, "Oh, that person's incredible," and you ask them about their art, and they're always going to be like, "Well, there's things I could have done better." They can find the flaws in it, and I think that's the beautiful thing is that everybody's art is flawed, but that it's those flaws that make it art, that make it human and expressive and meaningful. And so this is not art. This is illustration. The music that it makes is not music. It's whatever the musical equivalent to illustration is. It's putting in, and I'm not ragging on illustration. I'm just saying like if you want to use a term, don't use the term art because that's art is literally just it's self-expression and a machine can't express itself. Um, it's image generation. So I think that people will never stop creating things. I mean, we've been creating things ever since we were putting handprints on walls and caves. Self-expression is human. Fostering human creativity is a very good question because these are the tools that we're working with now. These tools they discourage the fostering of creativity. And I think that this is sort of a cultural thing. It's more of a sociological thing more than it is a technological thing or an ethical thing. Because for a long time, uh, we have been kind of like moving away from a value of the arts. And I mean that sounds a little bit negative. I think that we still very much value the arts in society, and they have their place. But like you know, historically speaking, America is not great at valuing sort of the beauty of things, and we don't do enough, in my opinion, to like put emphasis on art if it doesn't make money. And I think that that's it's too bad. We don't foster creativity very much. We value the things that we value, and I don't think self-expression is high on that list. Um, I think that to foster creativity we need to address it like a sociological problem, like a cultural problem, which means that we need to foster a cultural um, value of human-made art and expression. And it's only when you sort of enact that broader social change will you see a fostering of creativity on a more personal level, an encouragement as a society for humans to for members of that society to engage with and grow those skills, to see the people who have spent their lives making art and music and acting and all of this stuff, and to see them and to say, I want to do that, and I'm not going to take these sort of cheap ways out through generative AI, and like I'm going to actually spend the time to develop that skill. It's a beautiful thing, but it's not something that's going to just come around. I mean, now that we have these tools, um, it's completely taken the need to develop skill sort of out of the equation. So to foster that, we need to devalue um, the efficient. We need to devalue the quick and easy, and we need to revalue the or put new value onto the sort of long, arduous, hard journey to grow a skill and get somewhere. And I mean, this is just a broader sociological issue that I think we kind of run into a lot in modern culture, which is just the desire, the consumer's desire of like, I want that thing and I want it now, and I'm not going to wait. And I don't, I deserve to have it now. And you get inundated with that everywhere. I mean, every advertisement is telling you that you're missing out on something. Every billboard and everybody is telling you that if you don't get that thing now, then it's not worth having. And if you don't get that thing now, then what are you doing? And that goes for everything. It goes for skills. I think that's sad. Um, so fostering creativity requires intentionality, and intentionality requires demand, and intentionality requires appreciation. And I think that we lack a demand for the arts, and we lack an appreciation of the arts. I don't think we necessarily lack an appreciation or demand for music, but all of these things sort of fall into um, a larger social framework and a larger monetary framework of, you have musicians who become sort of, I want to say, corporatized. Um, they become Billboard Top 100, and they lose any uniqueness that they had. And this is a whole thing. And this is more personal preference than anything. So I'm gonna keep going. A changing of cultural values, I believe, is the only thing that would help motivate people to learn new skills on sort of a larger scale, to foster human creativity on a larger scale. And I talk about America mostly just because that's the social framework that I know. I don't know how AI is affecting people in Europe or China or uh, anywhere else in the world. Um, so, like I said, I think this is a two-part question. The second part, uh, since I've been talking for a minute, I can refresh this. Could the rise of generative AI mean that human workers must embrace "quote unquote" forever learning in order to remain relevant in the job market? Now, this makes me a little bit mad for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think everyone should embrace forever learning. I think that you should be learning your entire life. I think there's a great quote, and I can't remember who says it. I want to say Thomas Hobbes, but I think that's wrong. But it's the moment you stop learning, you start dying, and I think that that is 100% true. I mean, the moment you stop caring about, like, growing as a person, you stop growing as a person. You stagnate, and stagnation is death. Um, so that's a little over dramatic, but I do believe that. I think that forever learning, the cultivation of, you should pursue forever learning in your own life, because it rounds you out as a person. It makes you, um, it makes you a person. It makes you more interesting. It will further bring value to your life. Um, and so I absolutely think that everyone should pursue the idea of forever learning. What I don't like is the idea that we're doing it for the motivation of being competitive in a job market. Because first off, that puts the onus of, like, um, you you should be doing this. You have to be doing this, right? If you're not constantly pursuing the state of learning, you're falling behind in a competitive job market. And if you're not constantly sort of diversifying your portfolio and um, growing your skill set into like a million different branches, then you're decaying. You can't specialize in one thing. You can't care about one thing, because if you only care about one thing, if you're only good at one thing, an AI can do it better, and an AI can do everything. So you need to be good at everything. You need to compete with what is essentially a godlike machine with access to all human knowledge, that is like a million times cheaper and a million times more powerful than you. You're never going to beat that. And so the idea that you need to pursue sort of eternal learning throughout your entire life in order to compete with what is essentially the full sum of human knowledge condensed into like a robot that can speak, and it's stupid. You can't do that. It's impossible. Um, so I think that the motivation, is uh, a terrible reason to pursue that. I think you should pursue it for the cultivation of your own character, and for the further development of yourself as a human being. To reduce or require the motivation of such a lifestyle practice as forever learning into just staying competitive in a modern job market is not only, in my opinion, harmful, it's indicative of sort of our cultural value of work over life. Uh, this is something that, in my opinion, would lead very quickly to discouragement, because you can't be competitive not only with AI but anybody. Like, there's always going to be somebody who's better at you than you at everything. Um, it's going to lead to discouragement, disillusionment, and when used in the context of learning, it completely devalues it. I mean, what's the point of trying to learn as much as you can to stay competitive in a job market where you're never going to be able to rise above the water. You're just constantly sort of treading water. It's depressing. It is if someone embraces lifetime learning out of a fear of being irrelevant, then they have missed out on 90% of the value of what they learn. So that's this was obviously the point that I cared the most about. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think it's important to stay competitive in a modern job market, absolutely, and I think that it's important to uh, specialize in a lot of different things. But I think that if you're living to work and you are learning to be competitive in a job market, then you are missing the point. So go on to question 4. Um, this was, could debating and discussing topics with AI potentially help or harm student learning? Explain your reasoning. I think generally it can be helpful because you are able to basically test, discuss, and debate with, like I said, the full sum of human knowledge. And not only the full sum of human knowledge, but a full sum of human knowledge that is able to articulate itself, and is able to sort of carry on an intelligent conversation. So I think it can be helpful because the breadth of knowledge that AI pulls from is practically limitless. So it can help expand a student's understanding of a subject simply by the merit of them discussing with what is essentially an all-knowing encyclopedia of knowledge that is capable of putting what it knows into a cohesive argument. But I do think it can be harmful as well because, there's more to discussing and debating people than just the stuff you're discussing and debating. You When you talk to people, you are developing social skills. You're developing an understanding of the way that people think, and you are employing not just sort of knowledge and understanding, but also empathy and sympathy, and you're getting a feel for the person. Um, Yeah, I said that it can be harmful because it does not teach the relevant social discussion techniques and decorum that are important for speaking with real people. So yeah, it's helpful and harmful, I'd say. So finally, the scaling human tutors question. As recently as the 1980s, learning designers believed one-on-one tutoring was impossible to scale and that this problem would never have a solution. After watching the YouTube video above, what are your thoughts on or theories? Could human educators use AI as a tool for solving this problem? Could AI tutors help educators teach at scale by providing extra one-on-one tutoring for students? Yeah, absolutely. But like with all things that AI does, it is going to come at the cost of quality. I mean, you've got. I think that the really crucial thing is that it's extra tutoring for students. It's supplementary to actual tutors because there's more, like I said, to sort of talking about things with AI, learning from AI, learning from people. You learn more than just the subjects discussed. There's the subconscious, there's the subtextual, and the subliminal. You're building a relationship with people. You build a relationship with mentors, and that relationship can become impactful to your entire life. I mean, if you're learning under a professor, you can develop a relationship with that person. They can give you career opportunities and advice in realms outside of just the subject you're discussing. And I mean, AI can obviously give you advice on anything at any time, but AI has never done anything. So, you know, that's my opinion. And that's the end of this sort of collection of questions. I thought they were all really interesting. I found most of them to be pretty thought provoking, especially that fourth one. And yeah, well, thank you.